In this episode of the Brisbane Property Podcast, we are sharing an interview that Scott and I had with Bushy Martin on his Get Invested podcast. We hope you enjoy this episode. It's going to be all about our personal journey in property.
Welcome to the Brisbane Property Podcast with your hosts Melinda and Scott Jennison.
I think a lot of investors have a microwave mentality, and that is, let's actually get this heated instantly. We want this instant equity. We want this cash flow. We want it all. And I don't even know how many people come to us saying, well, what's your investment strategy? Well, I want a high cash flow, high growth property. I'm sorry to let people know that they don't exist long term.
Welcome to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, the leading weekly show for Australians who want to learn how to unlock their full self, health and wealth potential. I'm your host, Bushy Martin, and each week I go deep with the best investors, experts, leaders and founders to find out what it takes to break free from the grind, discover freedom and to live by design. Subscribe now and join me and get invested in the life that you really want. Let's get started. Hi freedom fighters. What do you think is the most important ingredient in achieving wealth in property? Now you're probably thinking it's the quality of the property asset or the location or capital growth, or perhaps your financing capability and structure. And while all of these are important parts of the puzzle, time and time again it's been demonstrated that the element that's likely to have the biggest impact on your outcome is time. Because it's all about time. And this applies to sustainable success in just about anything and everything. But how long and how much time? Well, extensive research by multiple industry analysts, including my own investigations, repeatedly reveals that on average it takes an area 15 years or more to go through a full growth cycle. And yes, you may get rare instances where this may occur in 8 to 10 years, but this is the exception rather than the rule. So the old myth that keeps being perpetrated by so-called experts that are trying to get their hands in your pocket and sell the next get-rich-quick scheme is that properties double in value every 10 years. And for select snapshots of time and places that justify their story, this has occasionally been the case. But it's more luck than good management that creates a perfect property storm that results in these events. Now, the recent once-in-a-lifetime post-pandemic stimulus that poured petrol on property growth and resulted in the rising tide lifting all property value ships up to 70% over the last 3 years, against the long-term average of 6.8% average annual growth, is a case in point. And this recency bias is falsely leading many to believe that you can continue to achieve fast equity growth in property. But this is a property panacea that's now playing out in many locations, where the exceptional growth that was brought forward is now leaving many areas exposed to going sideways and in some cases backwards in the absence of new and ongoing growth drivers via new infrastructure, industry diversity and income growth. So if you're wanting to play it safe and allow time, the tenant and the tax office to do the heavy lifting on your property relatively easily and affordably, so that your properties do their thing without burning a big hole in your pocket, while you continue to focus your limited time and energy on your work, family and friends without spending sleepless nights endlessly staring at the ceiling, then invest for a minimum of 15 years or more. It's why Raman Rakusa confirmed back in episode 165 of Get Invested that the best investors who achieve the biggest gains are actually dead, followed closely by investors who actually forgot they even had investments because they ended up holding their investments long term and not playing with them. And the world's best living investor, Warren Buffett, is a great example of this, where 99% of his wealth has been achieved in the 40 plus years of his long-term hold investments after he turned 50. Clearly, the time that you hold an investment has a huge impact on your results. So from where I sit, if you're investing in property for 1 to 3 years, you're a gambler, and you might as well go to the races and put your money on a horse or chuck some cash on the roulette wheel of a casino. If you're investing for 3 to 5 years, you're a trader, and 5 to 10 years, you're a speculator. So it's only when you're investing for 15 years or more and go through a full growth cycle that you can classify yourself as a true investor, as I detail in my book, The Freedom Formula. Now, this is a safe and affordable investment timeframe that allows an asset to grow without financial stress. It's a get-rich-slow approach that combines the exponential growth benefits of time and capital growth while requiring a minimum of your time to make it happen. It's what I affectionately call wealth by stealth.
So you need to play the long game. And what's the character trait that you need to develop to achieve this? No surprise, it's patience, a quality that's increasingly under threat in our instant iPhone everything world, where the benefits of delayed gratification have been drowned out by the dopamine-fueled need for speed and bigger, better, faster now. So how can you find the time to secure your property assets sooner rather than later, and then get out of the way to embrace what Einstein referred to as the eighth wonder of the world, which is the law of compounding, in order to last the distance and enjoy the exponential fruits of capital growth? In other words, how can you make the time now to invest in assets that will use and take advantage of the time that you've got left in order to give you your time back so that you can enjoy the timeless fulfillment and freedom of doing what you want when you want? Now, this is a common conundrum that many hardworking Aussies face, and the way that my wife and partner in all things, Sonia, and I overcame this was through the power of two. Where 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it actually creates 11 through the multiplication of synergies. You see, we consciously decided from day one that we would work together in all things. And everything we invested our time, energy, and money in had to grow in value, produce residual income, and be saleable. And this applied to our property and shares as well as our property management and finance broking businesses. We live by the Musketeers motto of all for one and one for all, by employing what we later coined our relationship relay and money medicine, where we interchangeably became the worker and the wealth builder. One of us worked to pay the bills and generate the savings, while the others would work to take the savings and invest it in building wealth. And like the Madison pairs on the Olympic bike race, where one rider's resting up on the side of the velodrome while the other is going hell for leather around the inside, and then they change over and pass the baton every few laps, Sonia and I would switch over worker and wealth builder positions. So we started with Sonia working recruitment while I invested in shares to create our property deposits. Then we changed over and I project managed the state government's health property assets, while Sonia built our property management business, allowing us to continue to build our property portfolio at the same time in parallel. Once the property management business was profitable, I then started and built our finance broking business to further fuel our property acquisitions. That ultimately allowed us to sell the property managing business so that we could now work together jointly in our know-how property finance and strategy business. Now, while this relationship relay seems simple, it's definitely not easy, and it's a continual work in progress because living and working together 24/7 definitely has its trials as well as its many tribulations. But with the right mutual goals combined with common outlooks, attitudes, and expectations, the synergies created by the power of two are limitless. So if you don't have the time and energy on your own, perhaps it's something you'd like to consider and investigate with your partner in order to create and devote the time required to invest in and build your worth outside of your work, because it definitely takes two to tango. And most property investors fail when their partner isn't on the same page. And another shining, living, breathing example of the benefits of the power of two are today's special guests and dynamic duo, Melinda and Scott Jennison. Together, their complement of amazing skills and experiences has combined in life and business to build a very strong personal property portfolio, as well as their dedicated, growing and award-winning buyer's agent business, Streamline Property Buyers, that focuses on Brisbane. So this week, we're going to dig into their personal journey, and the next week, we're going to deep dive into the intricacies of buying property, Brisbane, and the benefits of specialist local buyers agents. So welcome, and let's get invested, Melinda and Scott.
We're really excited to be here, Bushy. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Thanks, Bushy.
see you. Been a long time coming. I've sort of been watching with interest your journey so far, and you've had another fantastic year with the new office and being awarded the Real Estate Institute of Queensland's Buyers Agency of the Year. So I love the hard work and dedication and attention to detail that you guys put into everything you do. But I guess for those who haven't had an opportunity to see you and hear you, can you sort of kick things off by giving us a run through what you do differently and why you do what you do, guys?
Well, we run a buyer's agency service, Streamline Property Buyers, and you rightly pointed out our service is based predominantly in Brisbane. Look, a bit about our background. I'm a Brisbane girl, born and bred. Scott's a country New South Wales boy, but we have lived together in Brisbane for the last 30 years or so. And we've built out our own portfolio within Brisbane through multiple asset classes. But not just that, we've taken a journey through residential and commercial construction. Our portfolio is built through residential and commercial assets. We relayed those skills into residential developments, and we felt that we had the skill set that was necessary to help others to take a similar journey to what we had taken. So that's sort of a little bit of background.
Sounds good. Anything to add to that, Scotty?
Yeah, look, I think, Bushy, as Melinda touched on, our background through the construction side of it, and we've pretty much worked together, even during the construction side of things. Melinda and I work together. Now straight into the buyer's agency side of things. As I always joke about it, when it was construction, I was the director and Melinda was the boss. Now she's the director and the boss, but it works well for us. But just, I think having that skill set to move into something that we can help people with, that's probably where we got the passion to do what we do now. And it's not about us. It's about our clients, and our client comes first. And I think just having that skills of the construction, the building, because property is a building, but then also the upskilling of not just Melinda and her qualifications, but also our team here, and improving their qualifications to help our clients build that wealth in what they're looking for, or looking for a dream home as well.
Yeah, I love that. And it is a great combination that you bring to the table as a consequence of that. And there's no question that building and development expertise really puts you ahead of the pack from most buyer's agents who might have been panel beaters yesterday and put up the plaque and call themselves buyer's agents today. So I love that. Let's circle back a bit now, though, because I'd love for you to put a little bit more flesh on the bones in terms of what you individually and together have personally invested your time and energy and money in over the years, and why, and how has this actually led you to where you are and what you're doing now?
Look, I'll start with that question. A big part of my personal development journey has been investing in education. So I actually have a bachelor degree as well as a PhD. I'm very data driven. I love analysing data. Now that background was actually in a different field. It was an exercise physiology field. However, I've applied all of those research skills now into property data and analysing and researching property data. So we strongly believe in self-education and upskilling, because everything that you invest in yourself in terms of education provides you with an opportunity to create value for others. And of course, value creates income, and income creates freedom and time. So skill development's been a big part of it. And my dad was a property investor, and so I was very fortunate to be able to learn a lot of the fundamentals around property investing from him as I was growing up. But what he taught us was the value of hard work, not the outcomes that investing can create, because we spent a lot of time caring for the properties that he actually owned. We spent weekends mowing lawns of investment properties because they were sort of community flat buildings, weeding lawns. That's the level of care that we would take in providing accommodation for others. So my dad was a very caring landlord, and I think that comes through in what we do today within our business. We care a lot for the outcomes of our clients, and we want to make sure that we're providing them with the opportunity that matches their needs best.
Bushy, I think one thing that I really took out when you were talking in your intro, and I had a quick look at some of the notes I actually put down earlier, and the most common word I think I've actually got there is patience. Yeah. And you actually mentioned that, and that I just had a quick look and I went, I've actually got patience written everywhere here on my notes. In my whole time since I was 15, I'll give away my age. I'm 55 now. When I bought my first property, and the story of that, mum and dad, I was a first year apprentice in Tamworth, country New South Wales. Mum and dad basically, I should say it in a nice way, they sort of forced me in a way to buy a block of land. Took money out of my first year wages as an apprentice. Paying 18%, I think it was then, interest rates.
I know when that was then. I know the time that now you've shared that.
So we bought that. Dad and I built on that property, and we sold that property. That just helped me understand the power of property and what it is. Now, fast forward from there, and yes, we've got a portfolio of our own, But in the whole time, I've only ever sold 2 properties in the whole time in those 40 years. Okay. Every other property that we've purchased, one I sold, and I'll get to that later. It was just a lifestyle investment, which was probably one of the worst ones we did. But again, that first one was that starting block to get me moving forward, buying the right properties and holding them long term and having the patience. I think that's a huge key takeaway for people.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'd be interested in, because there's clearly a bit of an underlying background that you guys have been involved in property from your families, which is a great place to learn it by osmosis. But initially, as I understand it, you were following different professional pathways. So you got into building, Scott, the teaching, learning piece. I think you were CSIRO. Was it CSIRO?
I was lecturing at a university here in Queensland, at Queensland University of Technology. So I was an academic.
Got it. Okay. So what I'd love to understand is how those two came together to actually make the decision to open a buyer's agency. Can you sort of talk us through that a little bit?
Well, we met playing hockey, and I think that's a common thread that we have with you as well.
I knew I liked you guys. I knew I liked you guys a lot.
So sport brought us together. We were both hockey players. Scott was a very talented hockey player. He's even been a participant at the Australian Institute of Sport. So we've got many ties in hockey throughout all of Australia and internationally as well. So our journey came together through hockey. After a short period of time, we actually bought our first home together, and I moved out of the family home with my mum and dad and moved into the first property that we purchased together. So I didn't have that step that most people take where I rented. That was the property that got our journey together started. Scott was a carpenter at the time. We renovated that property, and we decided that we wanted to upgrade to an area that was much closer to the CBD, which is where Scott's office was located at the time, and it was where my university was located. And so we sold that first property for a profit because we'd manufactured some strong equity in that. And of course, we had some time in the market to capitalize on some growth. And that was the springboard for us to get started and build a portfolio from there.
Yeah, manufacturing the equity, I think, and that's probably I look at a lot of people I probably look at, maybe I'm getting older, Bushy, and I sort of say to some young people, they want the bells and whistles all the time. They want the brand, they want the top-notch finishes and all those types of things. We didn't do it that way. We bought something where we could see a future in it, or we could see opportunity in it. And yes, okay, being a builder, I was lucky to have those skills where I could put the nail bag on. We could actually do the renovations, a lot of it ourselves. And we could actually manufacture equity. We didn't, and I talk about this one as well, we didn't go out and buy lattes and mochas and all those types of things either. Okay, we from our parents and learning from our parents, we would probably go to a picnic and we'd make a thermos and we'd take a cup of coffee and you'd make your instant coffee, and okay, but we made sacrifices to get what we wanted because we had a long-term goal. The combination, I think, between Melinda and I, and when you talk about, working as 1 + 1 = 11, Melinda is heavy data. Okay. So I think as we move forward and we had children and we had a construction company, that's when Melinda came on board. From there, we wanted to do something different and we decided to get away from construction in a way. It was Melinda's idea.
Why?
And Melinda's idea to start Streamline Property Buyers.
The reason why we wanted to get out of construction is that we were competing with some of the biggest commercial builders here in Southeast Queensland, Hutchinson's, McNabb. Even though we were a small mum and dad construction company, we were actually managing some very large projects. And in Queensland, they brought in a new legislation, which is called industrial manslaughter. That was probably 12 to 15. Not sure exactly when that happened, but it actually made us reassess life because at that point, a principal contractor became criminally liable for workplace health and safety incidents on a workplace site. So we had 3 teenage boys that were all in private school at that point in time. We had built up our property portfolio to a level that we could self-sustain for a period of time and we thought, actually, it's going to be easier to go and work for others rather than risk this new legislation. And so it was a decision based on risk mitigation and focusing on what matters most to us, and that's our family. And so we closed the construction company down. We went and worked for others for a short period of time and found out pretty quickly that we're not employable because we had been self-employed for so long. It's very hard to then go back and work for others. So after a short stint working for others, and at that time I had partnered with another buyer's agency here in Brisbane, and I learnt the skills by working for others. And then we decided to go out on our own. And as I pointed out, we were very fortunate to be in a position where we could take that risk together financially. We knew that it was an investment that we had to make, and we invested in the belief that we had, that we knew that we had the skill set to be able to add value to others. So we gave ourselves 12 months. As I mentioned, 3 boys in private school. So it was an investment that we had to make and a compromise that we had to make. We took a big step forward to make, a big step backward to make a leap forward. And we committed to doing that. And the rest is history. We opened the Buyers Advocacy Service. I think in the first 6 months, we knew we needed a digital presence to help people see our skill set, but we assisted one client in that time frame. From that one client, we built our business because, as the old saying goes, what would you do if you only had one client, and how would you service that client? Well, you overservice them and you provide exceptional client service. And now we treat every client like that first client. And what we want to do is leave that imprint, I guess, where we know we've added value and we know we've enabled them to make some really competent decisions around property, because educating our clients is a very important value that we hold as a business. It's not just about us taking over and telling them what to buy. In our business, it's about educating so people know why we're recommending the property that is going to be right for them based on their objectives. So that's the journey.
Yeah, I love that. And again, you touched on values there, Melinda. I mean, as fellow hockey players, and I could see you in the halfback line, Scotty, and I reckon you'd be forward, Melinda, just not knowing you that well, but I reckon that's where you.
These were both playing inside. Inside right was the position I think we made a lot of, as the runners.
Hey, well, there you go. You've got the banner. Okay, and again, if we look at the values associated with that, that's rippled out into every other aspect of your life. The stamina that you need as an inner to run all day, front, back, sideways, and never stop, pretty much. It's pretty much a parallel with what you've done with everything else in your life. And I guess just circling on values in particular, then, guys, if we sort of put a bow around all of that, given your sort of family influence and your upbringing, how has that affected your core values and belief, and how has that now continued to influence what you do and where you're taking the business?
I think it's been a critical piece of us personally, but also professionally, and now within our business. We run a business whereby anyone that comes into our team understands, one, they're working for a husband and wife, so that's quite different to many other businesses. We treat our team as family because we are a work family. But in terms of our values, we don't employ for skill set, we employ for value alignment. So we want to ensure that people actually align with who we are as people, because if people have the same mindset, the same purpose, the same value set, then of course the skills can be taught. And that's been the approach that we've taken right from the outset of building our business. It's definitely more, if we can find the right people that align with our purpose and our values, then we can train the skills to help them be the best that they can be within the environment that we can provide.
Love it. You're singing my song, because the way we've structured the know-how crew is exactly the same. It's a bottom-up, service-based leadership exercise where we're always thinking and supporting the team, and therefore if the team's doing well, then the clients are doing well. It's amazing how rare that approach to life is, guys. So look, during that journey, I know you must have had some pretty interesting challenges. You touched on that one client in 12 months, which I can imagine must have been pretty challenging financially. Is that, or is there another challenging event in your life that's brought about your sort of greatest learnings and best changes to date? And if so, can you expand on that a bit for us?
Yeah, I think that for us, it was that transition out of the secure income that a construction company was providing for us and a lifestyle that we got to, in that making the big decision to change what was very comfortable for us. And as I said, we made that decision because we were no longer passionate about what we were doing. We felt we could have more impact in another area, and we wanted more time to be with our family. So our boys were teenagers. They're all water polo players or have been in the past. They're competitive in their sport. And because of that, it required a time commitment from us as parents to invest in their training and their touring and all the rest of it. So we wanted to be present parents. We thought moving into full-time employment with others would help us to create more time, but in actual fact, that was a step that we didn't recognize until we were already in it, that wasn't going to be right for us. So from there, we thought we need to actually think forward around what does the future look like. And we absolutely love property, and we now love what we do in property. So now every day for us, when we're adding value to clients, it doesn't feel like work. This is our passion, not our job. And I think because of that, it gives you the motivation to stay focused on what that long-term play looks like. And for us, it was the big risk transitioning out of something that felt comfortable because we wanted to follow our passion.
I think adding on to that, Bushy, we are passionate people, and what we've done, what we've been taught by our parents, hopefully what we're teaching our boys, and I'm sure we have, is the respect and the care for other people. Whether it's at your work, and I know I can call it work, even though it's not really work for us. Whether it's your sport, anything you do, you give it everything, you give it 100%, and you commit to something, and you're respectful with what you do as well. There's a lot of that, I think, through life and through what we do especially in our industry. I always say to everyone that we're here to help people, either to buy their home that's going to create memories forever for their family, or it's going to improve their wealth, which will improve their life and hopefully help them. It's a massive, massive investment. And for people to get it wrong can really set people backwards. But if you get it right, as I said at the start, the power of property is incredible if you get it right. And if you work with the right people that can help you to do that and go in the right direction, it can set you up for life. It can set your family up for life, and you get that enjoyment out of it as well. I totally agree with what Melinda said. This is not a job. I don't come to, I call it an office because I guess it has to be called an office, but I don't come into this office that we own now and it's not a job for me. We could be working 7 days a week, and some days we are, but it's not really working because we just enjoy doing it. We can be sitting at home and at the coffee table, the laptop will come out and we'll start doing something, or we'll look at a property, or we'll ring someone. It's just something we enjoy doing.
Work-life integration. It's not work-life balance.
Exactly right. I think that's a bit of an anathema, the old work-life balance. If you're enjoying what you're doing, there's no distinction between work and life anyway.
No.
As you've just commented on, before I sort of jump into some other related subjects then, what do you still struggle with, guys?
Look, for me, it's probably switching off because we love what we do so much and we're very client focused. Sometimes that client focus can override with the very important aspect of family life. So it's getting that balance right. And sometimes, it feels like we creep in, and I might be on the phone when I'm with the kids because I'm, helping a client. So I think that's probably the hardest thing in just finding, where to draw the line. But the benefit for us now is that we have an incredible team that we're building who are able to support us in delivering the outcomes that we're wanting to deliver for clients. And of course, it's upskilling that team to a level where they also have the requisite skill set to be able to confidently answer those client questions and educate clients, to inform those clients to make the right decision. And that's a process of time. Nothing happens quickly. And so that's been something that we've been working very hard on for the last 18 months to 2 years. And now we're in a better position to be able to get balance because of the team that work with us and alongside us.
It's really one thing I'm better than Melinda at, Bushy, is switching off a bit more. I probably do a little bit more. I'm a bit more of a relaxed person. What I probably struggle with, and I know this is, again, it's probably work related, is probably the industry a little bit. I came from, as I said, I'm an apprentice carpenter. I had to do 4 years in an apprenticeship. I then had to do a diploma to become a builder. I had to upskill. I had to do qualifications, and I had to get basically time in the job. And I also had to get the qualifications to build a house for someone or to build an industrial shed or whatever I built. The buyer's agent industry space is very different, and anyone can literally call themselves a BA if they just go and get a registration certificate. I struggle with that. Big reason why here at our business, we upskill our staff. Okay, I can't teach them to be a carpenter. I can't teach them to be a builder. I'll share my 40 years experience of being in the trade and how to fix a timber pole that's got some wood rot on it. I can help knowledge, and I can help share that. But the upskilling to be qualified property investment advisors and those types of things, that's something that we're really passionate about. And I probably struggle with the way that the industry's grown so fast and so rapidly.
100% agree. You can't buy experience. So, you know, a 4-day course that you might as well cut off the back of a cornflakes packet and move from doing something completely different to being a buyer's agent this week. It scares the hell out of me too. So it's one reason why I think everyone who they use getting a good buyer's agent to help them select an outperforming property and reduce the stress in the whole process is to look at how long that buyer's agent's actually been in the game. Because sadly, pretty much anyone with a pulse could have done well in property in the last 4 or 5 years. It's what's happened long term that really proves the pie as far as that goes. So 100% agree with you on that score, guys. I want to circle now back to the old power of two that I alluded to in the intro. Can you tell us a bit more about the good, bad and ugly of living and working together, and how you actually make this work both personally and professionally?
Yeah, obviously we need to set some boundaries, and we do that. If we're sitting in the sauna in the evening and I start talking about work, Scott will very quickly pull me up to say, this is actually relaxed time. This is not actually work time. So I think setting boundaries becomes really important. And also at work, the team know that we are a husband and wife team. So before we will engage anyone to work with us, they need to understand the environment that they are coming into. Because one thing we've recently done with our team, because we've had someone new join us, is disc profiling, so we can get an understanding of where everyone sits in terms of that behavioural assessment. Scott and I sit on the polar opposite in terms of our disc profile. For people that don't understand that, it's just an assessment of your natural trait. And we are the same at work as our behaviours are the same at work as they are at home. So there's no change for us. And for the majority of people who work in a workplace, they might be slightly different at home compared to how they present themselves at work. And that was true for all of our team. They're slightly different at home compared to the workplace. So I think even just in the profiling that we have conducted, you get what you see with Scott and I, and whether we're at home or at work, we are the same people. And I think we complement each other. Isn't the old saying opposites attract? We have completely different skill sets, and I think that clients value that. But we also, I'm much more objective. Scott's more subjective. I'm much more direct. Scott's more relationship based. So I think together it actually is 1 + 1 = 11, as you pointed out, because where my weaknesses sit, that's where Scott's strengths sit, and vice versa.
I love it. The old yin and yang combination.
It is.
Because what you've just described there in different aspects is exactly Sonia and I. She's the heart on the head. But that combination produces much better outcomes for everyone as a consequence of that. And I think the challenges we had early days before we worked it out was to have very clearly defined roles within the business and to stay within our lanes, so that was much clearer for the other people in the business than it was for us, because that's where it gets tricky. It's like, okay, well, who do I talk to about this? If it's quite clear between yourselves and then communicated to the rest of the team, then it works extremely effectively. And I'm assuming that that's exactly what you guys have done so well as also.
That's right. Very defined roles and direct reporting lines, so people are very aware of who they need to speak to for what support they need as they're developing as human beings in our business as well.
That happens at home a bit too, Bushy. Our boys know who to ask for things. if they want something, they'll probably go and ask Dad.
And Scott's now got into the habit of saying, "Have you spoken to him?"
Now I say,
The same here about this. He used to say the same thing. Have you spoken to Sonia yet? Because whatever she said is what's going to happen. No, I love that. Well, let's jump into the property journey in a bit more detail for you personally now, if we can. And I'd love for you to get into the nitty-gritties a little bit and share with us, without getting too specific, but what did you do, when and why? What were the challenges that you had to overcome? What worked and what hasn't? And what have been the learnings out of what you've personally done in property?
I think I'll start. So I highlighted earlier that we purchased our first property together as our first home. We retained that property, renovated it, and sold it to upgrade. So we upgraded to a home that's just 4 kilometres from the CBD. At the time, it was an older suburb, a lot of elderly people that were dominant in that suburb. So Wilston, it's where our home we're still at the same place today, but it was a very old, rundown Queenslander. But it was a big block of land, and it had proximity to the train station, the CBD, the university that I was working at, and the office where Scott was working. So it had all of the conveniences that we were looking for in lifestyle, but we knew that there was upside potential because we could renovate that as well. For us, I think retrospectively, the best decision we've ever made in property was that purchase.
Yeah.
So this was back in 2001. We paid less than $300,000 for an 810 square metre unrenovated property in Wilston, which is just 4 kilometres to the north of the CBD. And the equity uplift that we were able to obtain from strategically positioning ourselves in that market, and then not only the land and the location that drove the capital value, but the equity that we were able to manufacture because of the renovation that we've done. And by the way, I think we've done 3 renovations over that period of time, which is great because you can never change the location, but you can always change the house. And it's another motto that we live by. But the equity uplift and consequently the ability for us to leverage that equity and build a portfolio, it's been game changing. And, for us also, we know that this asset is the biggest asset that we own, but when we sell, that'll be tax free. We've not used the asset as an income producing asset. It's been a family home. And I think there's a lot of talk from some people about the advantages of rent vesting and that you shouldn't sort of focus on a family home. It can be a liability. For us, it's the exact opposite. And in fact, if you're buying a family home in a location that also has those growth drivers that we would typically be looking for investors, then it's a very tax-effective way to build wealth. And I think over the years, there's been different rules around, how to leverage and financing regulations, etc. We used to borrow off the equity without proving serviceability. So we were very aggressive when we were younger in building out a portfolio. I think at one point we said, let's just acquire one asset every 2 years. Fast forward, we made, I think, one mistake. And I think that came about because we felt like we were lucky. We had a good equity position. Let's buy a lifestyle unit on the Sunshine Coast. So we did buy a unit at Noosa. And we did benefit from that from a lifestyle perspective for many years until we had too many children and we outgrew that. So that took us through the time where we had infants. We've got some amazing memories from the time that we owned that asset, but it wasn't a good financial decision. So I think that we bought it as an opportunity to to continue to build wealth, but very soon realized this is actually not an asset that's going to help us build wealth. This is a lifestyle asset. And we made the decision about 7 years after we owned that to offload that because we could continue to rent out the lifestyle assets when we chose to go to the coast, but we wanted to actually reinvest that money into something that we felt was more in line with our long-term goals for wealth building. So that was the only mistake. And I think since then we've accumulated residential properties inside and outside of super, as well as within trust structures, commercial properties, and more recently, properties that are within trusts that will assist our children. So when they transition out of home, and just when I say children, we have a 21-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 16-year-old. So when they are ready to relocate out of home, there'll be an asset that they will be able to move into, and the rent that they'll pay will actually be paying off an asset that will eventually be allocated to them. So we've been very fortunate not only to set ourselves up, but also our 3 boys ready for their first purchase.
If we go back to that first house that we sold, Bushy, and we bought where we are in Wilston now, we basically, I think we sold it, we had a 60-day settlement. Bought the other one, had a 30-day settlement. So I had 30 days to make this livable. The first day, which we'd sold, it was a very comfortable house where we were living. We'd renovated, we'd painted it all, new polished floors, all those types of things. We went into Wilson, and Melinda's mother actually came in, I think, day or two after we'd got in there and started ripping down walls and smashing them up. And she came in and started crying because we'd left this beautiful family little home that we'd created. But we had the vision.
Let's just say she didn't have the same vision that we had.
we could see what we wanted to create. The other one, as Melinda touched on, the lifestyle unit, we didn't lose money on it. Again, luckily, renovated that completely. So that was probably one thing that we sort of managed to get away with.
We didn't lose money, but we didn't improve that position over a 7 year
period. So we said, you know what, let's just move aside. Bad decision, learn from it, move forward. The industrial one, I built an industrial complex, made a deal that I will take some of my fees, I'll buy that unit, we'll keep that warehouse. So there's been really strategic ways we've been able to do things. Again, I credit to the construction side of it. That helped us a lot in life to get to where we are now, to have these opportunities to create what we've done for our portfolio. And look, diversification doesn't have to be in a different city. There's different ways to diversify when you're buying property, whether it's different structures, whether it's through super, however it is, and different product types in different areas, but you don't actually have to diversify and go to the other side of Australia. I've got no idea in properties in Perth or Adelaide or Melbourne, no idea. So I'm not interested in that.
And for us, I think also, a big part of our investment strategy is the ability to be able to manufacture equity. And we have the ability to do that when we know we can organise local trades to do that. So I think for many people, they would think that's a mistake in building a portfolio only across one city. For us, it's actually enabled us to control which asset we focus on next to add value because for every dollar that we can put into a renovation, if we can get a $3 return on our equity uplift, that enables us to use that equity to continue to leverage should we choose to do so. And the most recent purchase that we made was actually our office here. We own our office in our self-managed super fund, and our business now leases the office back from us. And I think that we're content. We're now consolidating. We're actually not going to add any more properties into the portfolio. We're now in a position where it's just transitioning into that cash flow portfolio. And of course, it's being able to identify when the right time is to start that transition. And the right time for most people is when you want to start, creating more time to enjoy the fruits of life. And for us, that time is probably sooner rather than later. So it's now restructuring that portfolio in a way that enables it to be completely self-sufficient so that we can then use it to some extent to continue our lifestyle as we do move into retirement years, which is for some closer than others, but we're looking forward to the next stage when that comes.
And so what we've also learned a bit as well is we've taken what we've done and we've done that with clients. So we've got multiple clients. I wouldn't be able to even name how many clients we've actually helped do minor improvements on a property. And that could be tiny, tiny little things like some air conditioning or ceiling fans to renovations or even developments. So we've helped clients through different ways to do that. And we organise everything on that side of things for client. We've had clients from overseas that have done full renovations on a property, and we can help coordinate that for them and get it all done. There's ways to help people do it. And if people are interested in that type of thing, if they've got that risk appetite, it's a great way to help people do it. We've got the trades. People are always scared at the moment, especially current construction conditions in Australia. You know, they're worried they can't get trades or it's going to cost too much money or things like that. I can pop up and say, look, it's going to cost around about this much. I give a budget, and then we can actually get the trades to come in, coordinate it, and help them get that work done as well. It's just another way helping people out to build that, if that's something they're interested in manufacturing equity. It's a great way to do it.
And if it suits the finance setup that they have, because not all people have the ability to renovate and add value, especially if they don't have a cash position and they can't rely on leverage. So again, it comes down to identifying, one, if the risk appetite allows for it, but also if financially the individual investor has the capability and the capacity. And it all comes down to individually tailoring the strategy for the investor. And that's something that we're very careful to do. And it's one of the reasons why, as qualified property investment advisors, we take a tailored approach. It's not one size fits all at all. It is about identifying what timeframes an investor might have for building their wealth, what exit strategy they might have in mind. Are they purchasing in their own names or in an entity? What is their borrowing capacity? How much cash are they putting into the purchase, or are they actually leveraging at 100% plus costs? All of these things really do impact on the style or the type of asset or the location that we might purchase. And we always start with the numbers and the strategy before we actually look at locations and property type, which is probably different to the way a lot of other people approach it. I know that we've had clients or leads ring us and say, oh, where do you recommend I should buy for this budget? I'm looking to invest. And it's like, well, I wouldn't know which location because I would need to understand what you're trying to achieve. So let's have a conversation around your goals first and your financial capacity. And then let's talk about the location and the property type, because not all investors, should follow the same strategy. It should be personalized.
Absolutely. And I mean, I love what you did. There's so much to unpack with what you both just shared there. But if I was to sort of, I guess, emphasize a few of the key points for those that are listening in, what I love about what you've done both business-wise and personally, there's a very clear vision. You're very strategic in what you're doing to achieve your end goals. You've treated every property, with perhaps the exception of the one in Noosa, as an investment property. So you might have been your owner occupied, but you had very clear intentions on what you were going to do to manufacture equity and then use that equity to contribute to the growth of your portfolio. And I agree. I think it's horses for courses. So you touched on rent vesting, Melinda. I think rent vesting is relevant for people who just physically can't. If you're living in the center of Sydney and you can't get into your own occupied, then rent vesting makes sense to be able to use what you have to buy a property somewhere else, at least get you started on the journey. But don't ignore the owner occupied or principal place of residence as an investment opportunity because of, one, the ability to manufacture the equity, two, the capital gains tax-free treatment of that property at the end of the journey, which can also contribute significantly to the end game. So I love the way that the vision, the strategy, and treating everything that you're doing in property as an investment, and then matching that with what is the individual needs of the person that you're helping, and then having the skills amongst yourselves to not only just buy a set and forget property, which a lot of buyers agents do. They find the property, settlement, see you later, seagulls, pretty much, fly out, never hear from them again. What you're able to do is assess not only the property as it is, but what is the potential of that property? Can we actually manufacture some equity in that property, given that we are moving into tighter property conditions in the years ahead, that then leverage up your skills, Scott, to be able to project manage that process and give the investors confidence that they can get the work done at a cost that's going to work within the overall cash flowing and performance of the property. So in a nutshell, you've really, but I guess, linked what you've done together outside of business with what you can now do to others in the business, and some really important lessons that came out of that. Let's jump forward now. Then, given we've got a pretty good view of the past, and given your strategic approach to everything, where do you see yourselves in 10 years from now, and what does that look like, and what are you doing to make that happen?
I've got to be careful with where I go here. I could be overseas in Europe somewhere, Bushy. Look, there is an age difference between Melinda and I. Not that age really matters, but
No, age is nothing, mate.
As she said, someone will want to retire before the other one. Family's huge for us. Like, it's number one.
Yeah.
Guaranteed 100%. Family comes first, no matter what. We say that to our staff. You know, if one of our staff's got a family issue, we say family's first. Deal with it. Just because if you're not happy, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to help your clients if you're not happy. Okay, if someone's trusting you to invest money, you got to enjoy it. You got to love what you do. You got to be passionate about it. You got to have fun doing it. Otherwise, you're not going to give it 100%. So, you know, family is a huge choice for us. In 10 years' time, I hope our brand has expanded, and I hope that there's a brand out there that people can trust when it comes to buyer's agency. I think, as I touched on earlier, with new people coming in and the way the industry's changed, I think our future vision for our business is the way that it should be, and I think will change a little bit of the industry, the way that we're looking. Watch this space. That'll hopefully happen sooner rather than later. But I think keeping up that quality of service, things like that, we'll still want to be involved. We won't be able to let it go of it 100%. We've got boys that are getting older. They'll probably want to move out of home. Our youngest one could be in Europe if he keeps going the way he's going with his water polo. So that could be a few holidays here and there, which we might wander off to. But just having choice with what we do, that's probably, as I said, we'll still want to dabble in this. We'll still want to be involved in things. We want to be with the family. But just to have the choice to do what we want when we want, we're in a fantastic position because of the hard work we've done in the past and what we still do now, where that patience of setting yourself up for the future is what it's all about. And hopefully we've got clients that are going to be in the same boat, that we're setting up for a future where they can actually enjoy life and have choice.
Yeah, look at what he said. I think it's very much about having the choice to actually be with our family. And our youngest, we hope that we will see him playing in the Australian water polo team at the Olympic Games in Brisbane in 2032. So that's his goal, and we'll do whatever we can to support him between now and then. So in 10 years' time, it'll be 2 years after the Olympics, perhaps he'll get a contract over in Europe and perhaps be full-time water polo in Europe. And if that is the case, then of course we would want to spend some time with him, supporting him in his dreams at that time as well. So the ability to be able to do that for a month, you know, here and there, and come back and know that should we choose to come in and work with our team to continue to deliver exceptional service to clients in the buyer's advocacy space here in Brisbane and you know, in the future in other geographical locations. And that's what we hope to be able to do. I think we go on holidays now and, you know, we do relax, but that's where you have that time to think and create and understand how you can add more value in the future. And I think that's what we do when we do get a break away from the business. It's actually about, well, what can we do when we come back to actually upskill our team or educate our clients or educate the industry as a whole. And I think we're both big advocates, and especially myself, in actually giving back to the industry that we've grown within, and upskilling other buyers agents in the industry as well. And that's a big passion of mine.
Yeah, I love that. So, well, look, if we sort of reflect on your own personal journey and what you're doing now within the business, what do you now believe are the sort of keys to successful investment in property, and why?
I think that it's actually matching the strategy to the person, because not all properties are going to be suitable for the same investors. So understanding the personal goals and the objectives that each investor is trying to achieve and matching the strategy, but also just having the skill set. And because we've personally and professionally worked through multiple property cycles throughout our lifetime, what some people might advocate as being a great investment in a particular type of market or when interest rates are at a particular point in time may be very different when you're projecting forward into the future. And I think a big part of what we do is help clients to reflect based on experience that actually what's happened more recently, as you pointed out, this is not normal. This is abnormal. So let's actually look a little bit further back in terms of how it could normalize. So when we're looking forward and projecting, and something we do with all of our clients is actually project over a 30-year period, how can this asset really perform over 30 years? If we focus on cash flow now, what do those numbers look like? If we focus on capital growth, and yes, that might come with a compromise up front of some, cash flow impact, it might cost you to hold. But what does that look like 30 years from now? Because I think a lot of investors have a microwave mentality, and that is, let's actually get this heated instantly. We want this instant equity. We want this cash flow. We want it all. And I don't even know how many people come to us saying, well, what's your investment strategy? Well, I want a high cash flow, high growth property. I'm sorry to let people know that they don't exist long term. So the reality is that it's getting the balance of cash flow and growth right for the individual. And a lot of that's going to depend on how they're structured, whether they're buying in their own name, what their taxable income might be, where they are in their investment journey, how long it is until they reach that income phase, and what other assets they might own. Getting the structure right, getting the investment selection right is actually going to lead to better long-term outcomes. And that's something that we're personally very passionate about.
Just one other thing on with Melinda's too. One thing we do here, and whether it's a little secret or not, be conservative. Okay. When you're doing predictions, don't overpredict. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Okay, be conservative with what you do because you want it to be a better case scenario. I do that even when I budget sometimes, and I've got to be careful. If I do a budget on something for someone for, say, a renovation, and I be conservative to allow a little bit more, I don't want to be too much to say, oh, that's what I can't afford it. It's not worth it. But you don't want. I always say,
worst case scenario.
You want to have change in your pocket. Okay, I would in my building times, I used to hate it if I'd have to give someone a variation. It actually hurt me. And I did a lot of times with clients where I'd do a variation with no margin on it, just because I went, well, I'm sorry, that's what it costs. But, I'd rather just underpromise.
It comes down to our values of being, honest, high levels of integrity, professionalism, and client-centric focus. So we're always there to look after the client. Yes, sometimes things come up when it comes to buying property, and it's our job to actually provide solutions, not deliver problems. So that's what we do. And, it's the same when you're selecting a good investment. It's about, this is a worst case scenario. And then when we're checking back in with clients, it's a great platform for us to be able to say, hey, this is what we projected. How have we performed? And of course, rightly so, in the last 4 or 5 years, everything's outperformed, but we're very consistent in saying this may stabilize and level out. So 5 or 10 years from now, if we're back down to where we'd projected, don't be concerned by that, because markets fluctuate, they go up and down. And so we can't expect this rate of growth to continue. So it's about being honest and delivering information in an honest way. And we do that through our marketing messaging as well. It's not just in servicing clients. Like, we're never going to promise 80% of the purchases that we make are off market, for example. We'll be honest in our marketing message and explain why off market properties are not always the be all and the end all. That's a clever marketing message, and it does get a lot of people interested and the ears prick up. But at the end of the day, it's about being honest, because what we don't want is for clients to come on board and have disappointment. We want clients to come on board knowing exactly what to expect, and in fact leave in a position where they're feeling elated and completely satisfied rather than let down.
And sorry, Bush, just one other thing. It's not a transactional thing. If the property's not right and it doesn't stack up, that's okay.
We walk away.
We walk away because it's not right. So if it's not right, you don't just go and buy it, because you've committed. So if it doesn't stack up, it's not right, or something's not quite right about it. And we look at every property that comes through. If I look at it and if someone says, what do you think? If I go, oh, usually someone in the office will say, oh, hang on, you're hesitating, what's wrong? And straight away, it's like, okay, well, it's not right.
As soon as there's doubt, it's like it's not right for the client because we're not 100% certain. So we'll absolutely move on.
What I like about you guys and everything you've just shared with me, I almost thought I was talking. Literally everything you just shared is the same approach that I personally have. So it's very refreshing to talk to people who have that approach, because on the property front, Scott, just picking up what you mentioned there, a good buyer's agent from my perspective, because this is my own view, I'm looking at reasons to say no, and it's only when I can't say no that I'll consider saying yes. What you've just shared with me is a real reinforcement of that approach, and it's such a rarity sadly in the buyer's agent fraternity that good operators like yourselves can often get drowned in the deluge of others who are just tick and flick. But what I also love about and knowing what you do underneath this, that you're probably the only buyer's agents that I'm aware of who really and truly actively use to its full extent property investment analysis software, because you use the same software that I use to analyse the future performance of the property on a worst case basis. Like you guys do. We look at that and put belts and braces on it, because if, planning for the worst and expecting the best, if on worst case it looks reasonable, then you can be confident that the reality is actually going to be better than that. But very few people go down to that level of working out how much is a property going to cost me in year 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, up to 30. And on conservative analysis on costs and also projections, where's the equity going to end up in that property? Very few people do it. They talk about it and they have motherhood statements around the whole exercise, but getting down to the nitty gritties of looking at worst, best and likely case scenarios is something that very few people in the industry do, guys. So I really appreciate you sharing all of that. But hey guys, I guess what I'd like to do now, we've only scratched the surface, and we'll dive into a lot more of the details of the exercise in part 2 of our discussion. But as you probably know, I always get around to what I affectionately refer to as the ambush bushfire lightning round, where I give her the blindfold and cigarette and jump into 4 quick and dirty questions that everyone likes to hear. First of those, what superpower do you wish that you had, and why?
Oh, I love the movie Back to the Future. So I would probably say I'd love to be able to move in time a little bit, whether it's going forward or back in time. I think that'd be pretty cool. Whether it was the movie that influenced me on that, I don't know.
Love that. What about you?
And I'd like to be telepathy. I'd like to be able to read people's minds, because I think that would be a huge advantage as a buyer's agent, to be able to really understand what a sales agent might be thinking, and also what our own clients might be thinking at any point in time. So that's mine.
Brilliantly said. The old Back to the Future exercise. It's funny you should mention that, Scott, because I was talking on a podcast the other day around where I think 2025 is going to head. And I said, if you're going to name it as a song title, I'd be using the theme of Back to the Future for 2025. So that's a pretty apt description. Second question, guys, if you could have a coffee with absolutely anyone, whether it be alive or dead, who would you choose and why?
I'm a bit of a sports person, so I've actually got 2 here. One's actually live and one's actually dead. And I had Shane Warne and Michael Jordan. I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah. No further explanation required on that. What about you, Melinda?
I had Elon Musk. I find as an individual and a human being, he's incredibly innovative, but also just to get an understanding of how his brain is wired, because I feel like it's a little different to many of us.
Yeah, yep, dead right. He's a very interesting character, and he certainly has a breadth and depth of approaches to things, which is interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how that pans out in the context of the second Trump White House.
Absolutely,
it's about to start next year, but that'll be interesting. Now, completely different topic. If I was to give you $10 million in cold hard cash right here, right now, what would you do with them? Why?
Look, I think coming back to our values, we'd support our 3 boys in assisting them to buy something that's going to help them in the future. But I think that you can't underestimate the requirement and need for us. $10 million is not something that we need. So there would have to be a contribution back to something that we care a lot about. And, in the industry that we're in right now, homelessness is just such a big cause. So I'd be looking for a charity that provides some accommodation for people in need. And typically the group that I'd targeted homeless older females, because I think they're the most vulnerable part of our society.
Yeah, I just had a holiday and help family. I kept it simple, help family out, whether it's our extended family, our boys, help people out with what they need. And have a bit of a holiday, I guess. You got to do that, don't you?
Absolutely, you do. No, that's that year thing coming in there again, guys. Hey, last question in the series, and I'm a big believer that the daily disciplines and the things that we do incrementally on a day-to-day basis are things that build the opportunity for future achievement. So in that context, what's a personal happy habit, rewarding ritual, or daily discipline that you both employ that you think's contributed most to your success today?
I'm a big believer. I think, well, we both are. I know that. I can read Melinda's mind. I've already got that power. Healthy body and healthy mind. I'm a big believer. We both exercise every day, and it's in the morning, up at 4:30. This is because of our 16-year-old son that's obsessed with water polo. I'm actually really lucky to be able to go swimming, and I swim in the same squad as him. I'm not in his lane, trust me. There's a few different lanes. As we get older, you get pushed across the lanes. But I go swimming 4 mornings a week and do squad training where they train. I love it. It's my motivation. You know, I'm having banter with 16, 17-year-old boys that is just keeps me young. But and if not, if I have a day off where I don't do that, we'll take the dog for a walk and do a bit of gym anyway. And we've got a sauna. So I usually sauna most nights.
Yeah. Look, for me, I reflected back on the power of compounding, and Scott pointed out much earlier in the conversation around the fact that we would take a thermos out whenever we went somewhere rather than buying coffee. We have always, across all of the years that we've been together, taken a packed lunch. So it's very rare for us to come to work and go out for lunch unless we're going out with our team as a reward. We bring a packed lunch. We make coffee in the office. We don't go out and spend money on lunches and coffees, and, you know, we're not big restaurateur, like we don't go out to restaurants a lot, and that's simply because we value our time with family. We certainly have special occasions where we do go out, but they are special occasions. It's not a weekly or fortnightly event for us. So I would say the power of compounding by just being a little frugal with how we approach life, bring a packed lunch and make coffee in house.
I'm going to touch on Melinda's, because just recently our boys, to teach the boys a habit and get them to save money, Melinda agreed to buy a coffee machine for home and told the boys, I'll buy the coffee machine, but you're not going to buy coffees anymore. You got to make it at home. And you know what? They make the coffee at home and they're saving.
It's wonderful.
I don't think they realize how much money they're saving, but they're saving their money because they're not going and buying coffees all the time. They get up, they make a nice coffee in a good coffee machine, and she's happy now.
Yeah.
Saving the money.
Hello, just that whole delayed gratification exercise, just doing those, and the fortitude that builds without you knowing it, because you're doing it so often. It just, as you say, Melinda, it expands exponentially into other things. So love all that. Before we sort of wrap up part one, what's one final thought that you'd like to leave with us?
Look, I'm just going to say the power of compounding. We've talked a lot about patience. We've talked a lot about those decisions that we make along the way. It's something I share with my team in terms of our activity today is actually leading to client results, you know, next month or next year. It's what we do today that matters most. And for investors, it's actually the decisions we make today that are contributing to where we're going to be 20 or 30 years from now. So make the right decisions today, and you should be able to live more comfortably in the future.
Yeah, and I probably mine is very property related. And I get this a lot when people talk to us. They wonder whether to wait for a while and save a little bit more money, or should they invest into property? And I quite often say to people, if you can afford to buy now, buy now. Don't look in that revision mirror and say I should, because everyone, I think every single person that if they're into property will say I should have bought more, or I should have bought that one, and I missed out. But buying in the right property, in the right locations, all those things, we need to tick all those boxes. But if you can afford to do it now, don't Don't waste the time, because time will keep ticking. It's not going to stop.
100% agree. I often say, guys, that it's never about when, it's because you should buy every time you can, but it's more about what and where you buy. But I also talk about, I've had instances where we've worked with people who were all on the starting blocks and for whatever reason didn't happen. And then they come back 10 years later and then started the process. And I've actually done the calculations using the software that we spoke about earlier that demonstrated that a 10-year delay has cost them millions of dollars. If you break it down into how much they cost themselves a week by delaying the exercise, it's around about $4,000 a week in lost equity that they've done just by delaying that decision. So very good points made there, guys. Look, I feel like we could talk for hours, and I'd love to. But for part one, I'd really like to thank you for taking the time to share the ins and outs of your personal journey. And before we close, if anyone would like to explore your inspiration and information further in terms of how the power of two might work for you, or you'd like to ask me any questions preventing you from investing in or achieving your property future, then feel free to book in with me for a personal solution sessions by clicking the link in the show notes, or by going to knowhowproperty.com.au, hitting the purple book appointment button in the right-hand corner on the homepage, and then selecting the personal solution session option so that we can then spend a dedicated hour and you can tap into my 40 years of property and life experience to help you solve your property financial strategy challenges and blockages. And if you'd like to mix it with other like-minded investors in a very safe, relaxed and no-pressure environment, join us on our Property Hub Collective Facebook community, again by clicking the link in the show notes, and we look forward to connecting with you and continuing the conversation there. We now look forward to part 2 of our deep dive chat with Melinda and Scott in next week's episode, where we're going to unpack the whys and wherefores of all things about how to buy property properly. We'll explore Brisbane property condition opportunities and the benefits of specialist local buyers agents, plus a whole lot more. So thank you, and we look forward to sharing more insights with you again in next week's episode, Melinda and Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bushy.